Some of our stakeholders came to us and said, is there something that we can do to improve safety of both drivers and pedestrians on Whyte at that time?
Current theory is that Whyte Avenue could theoretically be closed between 103 and 106th Street between midnight and 3:30 a.m. on certain Friday and Saturday nights.
My name is Angela Turner. I'm with Responsible Hospitality, which is the City of Edmonton program. With me is Mickey Stricker-Talbot, who's also with Responsible Hospitality, and she's the Street as a Venue Coordinator for Whyte Avenue. We're happy to have a number of other colleagues here with us today. Thank you all for coming as well. But most of all, thank you for coming. We're talking about this program, Car-Free Whyte Avenue. We know that Whyte Avenue is one of the busiest entertainment zones in the city, and there are over 10,000 licensed seats on Whyte Avenue. Friday and Saturday nights on Whyte are as busy as a Saturday afternoon on Whyte. So some of our stakeholders came to us and said, is there something that we can do to improve safety of both drivers and pedestrians on Whyte at that time? We know that there's lots and lots of jaywalking. We know that there's lots of crowding on corners, and so we've put together an idea. We're doing public consultation. This is the third phase of the public consultation. We did some online surveys which attracted over 2,000 people. We think that got, we know that got to a citywide audience. We also talked to Old Strathcona Business Association. We went to all the community league meetings and other not-for-profit organizations in the Old Strathcona area. And we're having an open house today so that we can hear from you. We're going to walk you through kind of what the idea is, and then encourage you to record your comments and your feedback for us on the yellow stickies, and then we'll take that back, look at it with all of our stakeholders, all the other information that we've collected. And thank you for helping us to make a good decision about Car-Free Whyte Ave.
Will there be an opportunity for questions?
We can, yeah, we'll have time to do a couple of questions at the end.
I'm just wondering who the stakeholders
Stakeholders are the city, fire, police, Alberta Health Services, ambulance, Old Strathcona Business Association, residents, students, the university.
Not the
Residents are an important stakeholder, and we need to hear what the residents think as well. I'm going to turn it over to Mickey to talk about the details.
Thanks, Angela. So thank you again for coming. We are really interested in having this dialogue and hearing what people have to say about the proposed pilot in its current iteration. Just to give a little bit more detail regarding the consultation that we've done to date, the first phase of public consultation, which was the online survey, was really a temperature check for us. We wanted to understand how people thought about the idea as an overall concept. And we had it was fairly favorable. The total survey results had 77.1% of people highly in favor or in favor in theory, but needing more information. If we broke out area residents who answered the survey, there were 611 people, and 72.4% of those area residents who answered the survey were in favor. For the area employees and businesses who answered the survey, 78.3% were in favor. And from Insight Edmonton, which is a self-selected group of engaged citizens who answer mixed topic surveys on a regular basis, 81% were highly in favor or supported the idea in theory, but wanted more information. This was an online survey, and people could also answer it through 311. Then, when we engaged in phase 2 of the public consultation, when we went to the community league meetings, we engaged in conversation with the community league executives. They gave us a better understanding of what some of the issues would be for the residents in the neighborhood. and provided us with some answers to questions about which roads they would feel a level of comfort with closing, if any. So of the 66 Community League executives who we engaged in from 9 different communities who would have been impacted by the closure, 88% of them were in favor. For OSAC, which is the Old Strathcona Area Community Council, which is a coalition of various not-for-profit organizations, social services who operate in the Old Strathcona area, 82.4% were highly in favor or in favor in theory but wanting more information. And for the Old Strathcona Business Association, of the people who responded to our online survey, 85.7% were in favor. So that gives some context of the number of the numbers that we have been looking at to date. Now, of course, we haven't engaged directly with citizens who aren't necessarily involved with their community leagues, and that's why we're here today. For the public engagement, we asked during phase 1 and phase 2 which roads, if any, people would support closing to traffic. People had the highest level of threshold for 103 to 104 Street. Across the board, anyone who answered, more than 70% said that they would be in favor of those streets. There was also a fair amount of support for closing 104 to 105 and 105 to 106. There was less willingness to close 102 to 103 and 106 to 107. So, taking all that information, I'll also mention for people who said close no roads, because you'll probably find that interesting as well. From the citywide survey, 18% of people said don't close any roads, 12% for the community league, 20% of area residents, and 14% from the Old Strathcona Business Association. So I know that's a lot of numbers to review, but they're actually on the boards at the back of the room, so you can review them in a bit more detail. What we've heard so far can be broken down into 4 main categories for support in areas of concerns. Issues dealing with quality of life, issues dealing with safety, traffic flow, and coordination. So these are the major themes that we've had so far. For quality of life, we've heard on the positive side that it would add to the vibrancy of the area, it would make the area more pedestrian friendly. There is a desire from some people to see more activities included within the closure, for example, music and food trucks. And there's also a theory that it would reduce noise from loud cars and motorcycles who are cruising the Ave. On the negatives, there's concern about noise from pedestrians and how will people pick up their friends or their kids at the end of the night. So those are some of the concerns that we've heard so far. With regards to safety, on the positive side, most people who are engaged with us through the consultation process so far have agreed that there is a concern with overcrowded sidewalks late at night. The other positives that people believe that it will reduce crime and violence. There's an opportunity to address drunk drivers through the surrounding community who are currently using 106th Street as an escape route. And they've seen it work in other cities. Now the negatives, further to that, there is a concern about drunk drivers going through the neighborhoods. And there's a concern about antisocial behavior possibly being increased. So we've heard those concerns. With regards to traffic flow, on the positive side, we've heard that it would be an opportunity to address shortcutters who are going through the neighborhood, and an opportunity to decrease noise from excess traffic by the cruisers who are just basically socializing on the avenue, running their motorcycles up and down. On the negative side, it could increase traffic on side streets. There's noise, concern about crumbling asphalt, and shortcutting. Of course, there's the lack of alternative routes, east-west. Because Whyte Avenue is such a major thoroughfare, people are concerned about how will they get from point A to point B. In terms of coordination, we've heard that there's some very key requirements that we would need to have in place before moving forward, including a very clear signage and communications plan for letting people know when this would be happening, how it would be happening, and when they could expect it. Another one is how can this be best coordinated with future bike lanes? Residents would need to have a forum to provide feedback on the pilot. So it's happened, what's the feedback? We will need to address parking because we already know that parking in many ways is at a premium in the neighborhood. We would need to coordinate with neighborhood construction and increase garbage pickup. So that's what we've heard so far. Based on all of this, we have a current theory that we are asking questions about today. The current theory is that Whyte Avenue could theoretically be closed between 103 and 106th Street between midnight and 3:30 a.m. on certain Friday and Saturday nights. Buses would still be able to go through the closure, as would emergency vehicles as required, but it would be closed to private vehicles. Some of the questions that I'll do measurements and then I'll say the questions that we don't know the answers to yet. If we do decide to go ahead with the pilot, we are committed to measuring its impact. We would want to see what's happening in the neighborhood before the pilot and after the pilot. What are the number of cars that are currently on the residential streets, on the side streets, and does it increase, does it decrease? We would count cars. We could possibly count noise, measure noise that's happening on the Ave right now in the surrounding areas and afterwards. We would use social disorder factors to measure what the impact on quality of life is, things like jaywalking, traffic accidents, those sorts of things. And of course, we would want to hear from you, so we would host an online survey after every pilot to receive feedback to see what the impact on people who live and work in the neighborhood are. There are lots of questions that we still have that we don't have answers to. We don't know when it would happen. We don't know necessarily when a good time of year for it to happen would be. We don't know. We don't know if this is it. Have we captured all of the issues so far? So we want to hear from you. As you go around the boards today, you'll notice that some have information and some have information and questions. I would encourage you to use the sticky notes and the pens that are provided to give us your feedback. We will be using all of the information that's provided today in conjunction with the information that we've received from the first two consultation phases to help inform our next steps. What we are committing to is any of the information that's shared with us today will be captured in a What Was Said report that will be posted online. We do want to be as transparent as possible with this process. We will also be, I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. We will be working closely with stakeholders in order to determine, if we decide to go ahead, what the operational plan would look like. How do we address things? I was talking with a gentleman today who works for the hotels. So how do we best ensure that, as an example, their hotel guests can get access to their hotels after midnight? We may not have an answer, but we will need to find an answer before we proceed. So those are the sorts of questions that we want to have asked of us today, so that we can do our best to address them as we move forward. So I think we'll have time for maybe 3 questions, and then you can find anyone who has an Ask Me button afterwards.